is one of the most painful and confusing times in a woman's love story. Everything seems perfect. You are connecting deeply, sharing honest moments, and for a little while it feels genuine. He sees you, you feel safe, you allow yourself to hope, and then suddenly he pulls away. No warning, no explanation, just silence. You are left asking yourself, what did I do wrong? But what if you didn't do anything wrong at all? What if his disappearing isn't rejection, but a misunderstood reaction to intense emotions? There is a paradox in love that hardly anyone talks about. Sometimes when a man really starts to feel something true, he gets scared. Not of you, but of himself. Of what it means to fully love someone. Of the kind of man he might have to become to deserve you. Instead of moving closer, he disappears. Not because he doesn't care, but because the connection is too important. In this message, I want to explain this exact situation. The hidden mind behind why a man might vanish just when you think you've touched his heart. We'll look at what's really happening beneath the surface, why some men pull back when love gets real, and how you can keep your strength when he goes silent. If you've ever felt abandoned or confused by a sudden emotional withdrawal, this is important for you to hear. The truth might hurt your heart, but it can also free it. And no, this isn't another cliche saying, he's just not that into you. Because sometimes he's too into you to risk losing himself. There is a moment in almost every romantic connection where things start to get serious. He opens up, becomes vulnerable, shares a part of himself beyond the surface. You feel a change, the emotional bond grows stronger. You might think, this is it, he's finally letting me in. Then, like clockwork, something shifts. He starts to pull away. Maybe he takes longer to reply or stops reaching out first. The closeness you felt starts to feel distant and cold. You begin to overthink every little thing. Was it something you said? Did you come on too strong? But here is the truth. Most of the time, it's not about you. It's about what's happening inside him. When a man begins to feel deeply connected, his survival instincts kick in. It's not always a conscious choice, but it is real. For many men, love means vulnerability. For someone who hasn't fully faced his own emotional world, getting too close too fast can feel overwhelming, even threatening. Love asks for surrender, presence, and responsibility, but mostly it asks for the courage to be seen. That can be terrifying for a man who was taught that feelings are weakness, that asking for help is shameful, or that being masculine means holding everything inside at all costs. So when his emotional walls start to break down, his first reaction may be to pull back, not to hurt you, but because the real connection feels strange and unsafe. Think of it like this. When a man falls in love, he begins to lose control. And for many men, that's not exciting, it's scary. Love threatens their idea of independence. Suddenly there is something precious to lose, and losing you would hurt deeply. So instead of risking that pain, he distances himself before things get too real. This pullback is not always a logical choice. Often, it is an instinctive response rooted in past wounds, childhood pain, heartbreak, feelings of abandonment, or fear of failing. Here is the paradox. The more he feels, the more he may run away, because these emotions break the numbness he has protected himself with for so long. This is why women often feel blindsided. The connection was real, but real does not always mean ready. So what can you do when this happens? First, don't chase him. Don't make yourself smaller or try to fix it. His pulling away is not a reflection of your value. It's about his ability to handle deep feelings. Instead, give him space. Focus on your own emotional balance. Most importantly, stay strong in your own power. If he comes back, it should be because he chooses to, not because you begged or pressured him. And if he doesn't, that is your answer too. Men don't pull away because they are bored. They pull away because the connection matters. Those who aren't serious don't need distance. They are already detached. But those who feel deeply often need time and space to figure out how to handle it. Sometimes silence is not the end. It's the start of him learning how to show up in the right way. It sounds strange, doesn't it? That someone would walk away because they love you. That a man could disappear not out of carelessness, but out of something deeper, more complicated and more fragile. Here is the truth about real love. It shakes people. It strips away layers. For some men, especially those who haven't learned to feel safe with their emotions, love can be both beautiful and frightening. When a man disappears after creating a deep emotional bond, it can mean he is overwhelmed by how real it feels. Unlike casual interest or brief attraction, love demands more than he may be ready to give. It forces him to face himself, his fears, his insecurities, and his unresolved past. For many, this feels like standing too close to fire. He doesn't want to hurt you, so he steps back. This is not an excuse. It's not about accepting emotional immaturity or bad communication. It's about understanding why this happens. When you understand the reasons, you stop blaming yourself and stop thinking it says something about your worth. For some men, disappearing is not about wanting to leave you. It's about needing to find themselves. It's about trying to manage feelings they've never allowed themselves to feel. They are not ghosting to hurt you. They are retreating to protect their fragile sense of self, which is shaken by the power of your connection. Love has a way of bringing up everything we have buried. A man who has never felt safe to be vulnerable will often run from the one person who sees him most clearly. Not because he doesn't want you, but because he doesn't know how to be seen without feeling exposed. You have touched a part of him he has been hiding, maybe even from himself. That kind of exposure feels like danger, not a gift. So what does this mean for you? It means don't chase him. Don't shrink yourself or try to prove your worth to someone too afraid to hold it. Let him disappear if that is what he needs. Because if it is love, he will come back stronger, clearer, and more grounded. If it's not, you have made room for a kind of love that doesn't disappear when it gets real. Real love doesn't always look like closeness. Sometimes it looks like distance. But love that comes back after fear isn't weak. It has been tested. And love that has been tested and chooses you again, that is the love worth waiting for. When the words stop coming, we often assume the worst. He's not texting, not calling, not reaching out like before, and your mind rushes to fill in the gaps. He doesn't care anymore. He's moved on. I meant nothing. But silence is not always empty. Actually, silence can be loud if you know how to listen to what is not said. Men don't always share their feelings through words. Many were never taught how to. From a young age, boys are often told to hide their emotions, to be tough, to stay calm, and to avoid showing weakness. So when strong feelings come up, especially romantic ones, they may not have the words to explain what's happening inside. But that doesn't mean nothing is going on. It means you need to look beyond his words and watch his actions. Start to notice small signs. Does he still watch your stories or check your social media? That may seem small, but it can be his way of staying connected without the risk of a vulnerable conversation. Has he kept your things? Has he held on to photos or memories instead of cutting ties? That is not detachment. That is quietly holding on. Then there are quiet actions. Talking about you with mutual friends, asking about you through someone else, or even working on himself in silence. Starting therapy, focusing on his goals, looking inward to become the man he thinks you deserve. These are not coincidences. These are silent actions that show intention. Of course, not all silence is meaningful. There is a difference between healthy space and emotional manipulation. The key is to feel the energy behind the silence. Does it feel like avoidance, or does it feel like someone who is quietly holding space? Is it abandonment, or is it hesitation filled with weight? Silence doesn't always mean he doesn't care. Often it means he is overwhelmed, reflecting, or scared. Think about it. When you feel deeply and don't know how to say it, don't you sometimes pull away to protect yourself from messing things up? Men do the same. Often, their withdrawal is not rejection, but a protective pause. The job is not to figure out every move or wait forever, but it is wise to understand that some of the loudest messages come without words. Silence can be full of feelings, full of fear, and sometimes full of love. So next time he disappears, don't just hear the silence, read it. Because sometimes what he doesn't say is exactly what he is feeling. Not all disappearances are the same. Some men pull away because they are overwhelmed by real feelings. Others disappear for different reasons, and those reasons have nothing to do with love. It is important to tell when distance is a sign of emotional processing, and when it is a warning flag waving right in front of you. Here is the truth. Sometimes when a man disappears, it is not a love story, it is a pattern, a way to avoid closeness, dodge responsibility, or keep options open. He might start strong, say all the right things, make big promises, and get emotionally close, only to vanish once he feels he has your attention or affection. That is not love. That is emotional manipulation. Disappearing can also mean emotional immaturity. Some men don't have the skills to handle conflict, emotional responsibility, or real connection. Instead of sharing their discomfort, they vanish. They take the easy way out, leaving you confused, doubting your worth, stuck in a cycle of overthinking. But listen carefully. A man who cares will find a way to talk. Silence is not always noble. Sometimes it is just avoidance in disguise. Then there is the player, the man who gets what he wants and then checks out emotionally. He wasn't overwhelmed by love. He wasn't scared by deep connection. He was never truly invested in building something real. He was there for the chase, not the commitment. If he disappears and never shows signs of taking responsibility, empathy, or making an effort to come back with honesty, take that as your answer. Also, watch for patterns. Has he disappeared before? Is this a cycle of getting close, pulling away, and coming back only when it suits him? That is not romance. That is emotionally unsafe. Don't confuse inconsistency with passion. True love might take space, but it never leaves you guessing your value. So how can you tell the difference between a man who disappears because of fear and one who disappears out of disinterest or disrespect? Look at what happens after the silence. Does he come back with honesty, growth, or a true explanation? Or does he return like nothing happened, trying to pick up where he left off with charm and surface-level affection? Does he acknowledge the pain his absence caused, or does he deny, deflect, or gaslight you into thinking you overreacted? His return tells the real story. A man who loves will eventually face himself and you with honesty. A man who is just playing will only give excuses and crumbs. At the end of the day, silence has a voice, but you must decide which kind of silence you accept. Love can be messy, yes, but it should never leave you confused forever. If his disappearance doesn't come with responsibility, growth, or clarity, it doesn't mean something deeper. It means it's time to walk away. When a man pulls away, your first thought might be to close the distance, to reach out, to ask what is wrong, to fix things. Because you felt the connection, and now that it's shifting, your energy naturally wants to restore restore peace. But this is where true feminine power is tested, not in how you move toward him, but in how you move within yourself. The feminine response to distance is not reaction, it is recalibration. We live in a world that praises action, chase, and effort. But feminine energy is not about chasing. It is about attraction. It is about drawing in, not running after. When he pulls away, the natural shift is not to chase him. It is to soften into yourself, to grow inward, to come back home to your own heart. Because here is the truth. How you respond to his distance shows him more about your value than any words could. If you immediately text him, over-explain, or try to fix things, you send a message that your peace depends on his presence, that your security is outside of you, that love has to be earned, chased, or convinced. That is not feminine energy. That is survival mode wrapped in fear. But when you pause, pull your energy back without anger or worry, when you stop trying to figure out every move and instead nurture your own joy, your own beauty, and your own inner world, you show real power. That's when you become magnetic. The feminine doesn't punish, it doesn't chase, it doesn't beg. It allows, it trusts the silence, it trusts the pulling away, and it trusts itself enough to know that what is real will never need force to stay. So how do you move into that space? You start by taking back your attention. Bring it away from his last message, his absence, his quiet, and place it fully on yourself. What makes you feel alive? What lights you up? What makes you feel beautiful and grounded? You focus on reconnecting with your own glow, not for his attention, but because it is your right. You step into calmness with strength. You stop overthinking. You stop reaching out. You sit in the discomfort if you must. Instead of trying to get clarity from him, you create clarity inside yourself. This doesn't mean you don't care. It doesn't mean you fake being unbothered. It means you answer with emotional maturity and energetic control. You say, I trust myself. I trust this connection. I don't need to beg to be chosen. You also become selective. You watch what comes after the distance. Because a man who is scared but still connected will come back to you honestly and with purpose. But a man who is emotionally unavailable will keep giving small bits or vanish completely. Your calm energy, your lack of reaction makes the truth come out. The feminine is not passive, it is strong, it is open, and most importantly, it is patient. It knows that the man meant for you will not be scared off by your stillness. Often it is your calmness that invites him to rise up to your level, to leave confusion and come into clarity, because only when you are grounded in your feminine energy can the masculine feel safe enough to come back, not to a woman who chased him, but to a woman who never left herself. When distance enters the relationship, don't let it pull you out of your balance. Let it pull you deeper into yourself. When a man suddenly disappears, it can feel like your world shifts. One moment you were building something real, sharing connection, laughing, opening your heart. And the next moment, he's gone. No calls, no messages, just silence. Your mind races. Was it me? Did I do something wrong? Should I reach out? But here is the shift that separates high-value women from the rest. She doesn't spiral when he vanishes. She steadies herself. She doesn't chase. She doesn't panic. She returns to herself. Staying high value when a man disappears is not about pretending you don't care. It is about knowing your worth so deeply that his silence doesn't shake your foundation. It is about choosing self-respect over giving up on yourself every single time. Let's break it down. The high-value woman understands her energy is precious. When a man vanishes, she doesn't immediately give him the benefit of the doubt. She doesn't chase answers or demand explanations. Why? Because she knows a man who truly respects and values her would never disappear without a word. And if he does, that is the closure she needs. She sees his silence not as a loss, but as a truth revealed. Instead of asking, why did he leave? She asks, what does this teach me about how I want to be loved? A high-value woman also resists the urge to bargain with her dignity. She doesn't send long emotional messages trying to pull him back with guilt or pressure. She knows that attraction based on neediness won't last. Real connection only grows through mutual respect and emotional maturity. So what does she do instead? She turns inward. She takes care of herself. She focuses on her goals, her friends, her happiness. She doesn't use the silence to prove her worth to him. She uses it to remember her worth for herself. Here is the beautiful paradox. The more she lets go of trying to control his actions, the stronger she becomes in his eyes. Because nothing shakes a man like a woman who doesn't beg for his presence. It shows strength, emotional wisdom, and a kind of self-love that refuses to shrink for anyone. A high-value woman also trusts time. She knows sometimes people need to step back to understand what they had, but she doesn't wait around doing nothing. She lives fully, loves herself fiercely, and draws in what matches her highest standard. If he returns, it's on her terms. She doesn't let him come back as if nothing happened. She watches closely. She pays attention to actions, not just words. Because being high value isn't about building high walls. It's about having a strong filter. She doesn't punish him for leaving, but she also doesn't give instant access to someone who is inconsistent. And if he doesn't come back, the woman who knows her worth is not afraid to be alone. She fears shrinking herself to be accepted. She isn't here to convince someone to stay. She's here to attract someone who never wants to leave. Some time ago, I had a talk with a man that completely changed how I see relationships and emotional distance. It was a talk that stuck with me, and I think it might really connect with you, especially if you've ever been confused or upset when someone pulled away. He talked about the complexities of love, vulnerability, and why people, especially men, tend to disappear when they get close. He looked at me with a real, almost pained look and said, you know, the closer I get to someone, the more I pull away. It's not because I don't care, it's because I care too much. He went on, I know it sounds backwards, but I've always struggled with loving deeply because I'm scared of losing them. The closer I get, the more I feel like I'm losing myself. I can't explain it. It's like I have to pull back just to remind myself I'm still me. I remember feeling struck by the honesty in his voice. He didn't soften his words or make excuses. He was simply explaining something many people, especially women, might not understand. Sometimes the act of pulling away comes from deep emotional conflict, not from lack of love. At that moment, I realized that what many women feel as rejection isn't always about losing interest. Often, it is a man feeling overwhelmed by his own feelings. For some men, loving fully feels like a risk, because love means vulnerability, and vulnerability means trusting both the other person and themselves. He shared something even deeper. When I care about someone, I want to be the best version of myself for them. But the more I care, the more pressure I feel from that responsibility, and it scares me. I pull away because I'm afraid of letting them down, of not being enough, of not protecting them like I want to. What moved me most was how he talked about fearing not being enough. Men, in my experience, often don't talk about their insecurities like women do. Instead, they keep them inside and pull back when they feel they aren't meeting their own or others' expectations. His words gave me a new way to understand why some men disappear, especially when things get serious. It's not always about wanting to hurt the other person. Often, it's an internal fight where they try to balance their feelings and fears. The truth is, love can feel overwhelming if you're not ready for it emotionally. Instead of facing the discomfort, they pull away, not because they don't care, but because they're trying to protect themselves from the fear of failing in love. That talk changed how I see emotional distance. I always believed love should be a place of safety and connection. But what this man made me understand is that sometimes people pull away, not because they reject love, but because they reject the fear that comes with being fully open. They love, but they are afraid of how deep that love could go and what it might mean for them. So if you've ever felt someone vanish just as things got real, take a step back. Think that their absence could be because they struggle with closeness. It doesn't excuse poor communication or inconsistency, but it explains an important truth. When a man loves you deeply, he's not always ready to show it. Sometimes he disappears to face his own fears first. When he comes back, it's usually because he has fought those fears and learned to accept his vulnerability. The key is to never take their absence as a reflection of your worth. If anything, it shows their inner struggle. And the man who is brave enough to face that struggle and come back is the one worth waiting for. When you face emotional distance or silence, the strongest thing you can do is detach, but not how you might think. Detaching doesn't mean shutting off your feelings, getting cold, or pretending you don't care. It means taking back your power, your control, and your peace, no matter what he's doing or not doing. Detaching with power means knowing you are complete as you are. You don't need anyone else to prove your worth or make you feel whole. When you detach, you are telling the world, I am enough on my own. I deserve love, attention, and respect. If someone can't give me that, that is their loss, not mine. When you detach with power, you stop chasing or needing constant reassurance. You let go of trying to control the situation or force him to act a certain way. Instead, you focus on what you can control: your energy, your happiness, your life. You start filling your own cup, putting effort into your passions, your growth, and the relationships that nurture you. Detaching with power isn't giving up. It's stepping fully into your strength and letting go of anything that doesn't honor your value. That is where your true power lies. Next time he disappears, instead of falling into confusion or doubt, take a deep breath. Remind yourself of what you've learned here. This is your chance to respond with strength, clarity, and self-respect. Remember, love isn't about chasing, it's about attraction. The more you invest in yourself, the more magnetic you become. When you are sure of your worth, you attract what truly fits you. You stop settling for crumbs or emotional games. When he comes back, watch his actions, not just his words. Is he responsible? Does he show respect, honesty, and real intention? If yes, give him space to prove he is ready. If no, know that you deserve more than someone who plays with your feelings. Trust that the right person will meet you at your level, without games, without fear. Your next step is to keep moving forward with confidence. Focus on what's next for you. Let go of anything that doesn't match your highest self. Keep shining your light, because the right person will be drawn to it.